Let's be honest, trying to improve your English speaking sucks. Luckily, there's Super Sentences, the best series on YouTube for improving your English speaking skills and confidence. Today, we have episode 23 in this series. If you already know how it works, feel free to skip ahead to the lesson. But if it's your first time here, let me explain what Super Sentences is and how it works. We are going to begin to start with a simple sentence, something basic and easy that everyone can say regardless of your English speaking level. Then we will stretch that baby sentence level by level, making it longer and more advanced, more complex. You can practice speaking in two different ways. Number one, by saying the sentence out loud with me, in other words, shadowing me, or by pausing the video and repeating back out loud. Guys, if you want to become a confident English speaker, you need to talk at length. And the truth is, in real life, there just aren't that many opportunities to talk at length. So that's exactly what we're doing here today, training your brain to speak longer, more complex sentences. We're gonna work that muscle. Here we are at level 1 of today's super sentence. Click like on this video, leave me a comment, maybe even become a channel member to support me as your YouTube English teacher. And let's jump in. Let's say the sentence together. Are you ready? Ryan walked into the office. Again, Ryan walked into the office. All right, awesome. We have our main character, a man named Ryan. What did he do? He walked into a place. What place did he walk into? The office. We don't know much about the story just from looking at level 1. So let's say it together again and then level up to level 2, stretching the sentence longer, making it more complex. Are you ready? Ryan walked into the office. At level 2, you can see some blue text has been added to the sentence. We've stretched it longer. We've made it more challenging. That's going to happen every level as we progress. Let's try saying this new sentence together. Are you ready? Ryan walked into the office as if he had everything under control. One more time. Ryan walked into the office as if he had everything under control. Now, this is a really interesting addition to our super sentence because suddenly things are not so simple. We have conflict in the story. What's conflict? That just means a problem. How did Ryan walk into the office? Well, he walked into the office as if he had everything under control. As if he had everything under control. That means Ryan is pretending that everything is fine, that he has everything figured out. And if he needs to pretend, then maybe he doesn't have everything figured out. Maybe Ryan does not have everything under control. Let's find out what's going on with Ryan, but first let's say this one more time. Ready? Ryan walked into the office as if he had everything under control. Say it with me. But if you looked closely, you'd see his hands were shaking. Uh-oh. Ryan's hands were shaking. If you looked closely, you would see that. Yeah, maybe if you just take a quick glance at Ryan, right? A quick glance, a quick look, maybe you wouldn't notice, but if you looked carefully, if you looked closely, then you would see his hands were shaking. So he's trying to hold it together. Or we could say keep it together. Or hold things together, keep things together. Just means he's trying not to freak out. He's trying not to panic. I think Ryan is very nervous about something. Let's say the sentence one more time and then level up again. Ready? Ryan walked into the office as if he had everything under control, but if you looked closely, you'd see his hands were shaking. Once again, say it with me. Look at the blue text. Because if he didn't land this job, he'd have to move back in with his parents. Okay, suddenly everything makes sense. Here in level 4, we get a lot more information about what is going on here. Why did Ryan walk into the office as if he had everything under control, but maybe he really didn't have everything under control? Why, if you looked closely, would you be able to see that his hands were shaking? Well, it's all because if he didn't land this job, he would have to move back in with his parents. So Ryan is headed to a job interview, and he really needs to land this job. That's a very colloquial, spoken native expression. To land a job. If you land a job, it means you successfully get the job, right? So he really needs to get this job. Otherwise, what is going to be the negative consequence of not getting the job? Well, the negative consequence of not getting this job would be he would have to move back in with his parents. Maybe right now Ryan is living alone, right? But he really needs money. So if he doesn't get this job, he's going to have to move back in with his mom and dad in order to save a buck. In order to save money. Okay, let's say the whole thing, then we'll level up again. We'll see what happens next. Ready? Ryan walked into the office as if he had everything under control. But if you looked closely, you'd see his hands were shaking because if he didn't land this job, he'd have to move back in with his parents. How do you guys feel about the idea of moving back in with your parents? Would that be fine? Would it be a good situation? Or maybe like in Ryan's situation, it would feel like a big step backwards, like a big setback. Let me know down in the comments. So if he didn't land the job, he would have to move back in with his parents, read it with me, who were already hinting at turning his old bedroom into a home gym. Oh no, things are really complicated here. Not only does he not want to move back in with his parents, he doesn't want that. It sounds like they are excited to be living alone as well. They have already been hinting at doing something. They've been dropping hints. They've been kind of saying to him here and there, hey, you know, we've had this idea recently. We're thinking about turning your old bedroom into a home gym. Yeah, now that you're gone, now that you are not living with us anymore, we can take your old room and we can do something useful with it. Turn it into a home gym. So yeah, his parents don't want him coming back either. Ryan better land this job. Let's read it again and then level up once more to level 6. Ready? Ryan walked into the office as if he had everything under control, but if you looked closely, you'd see his hands were shaking, because if he didn't land this job, he'd have to move back in with his parents, who were already hinting at turning his old bedroom into a home gym. I have to admit that if I were Ryan's parents and I had raised a kid and the kid finally left the house, yeah, I'd be excited about making some changes, setting up a home gym, setting up an office where I could record my videos, that kind of stuff. What if you guys had an extra room in your house? What would you do with the space? Would you make a music studio? Would you make a home library, a home gym? Let me know in the comments. His parents have been hinting about taking his old bedroom and turning it into a home gym. So needless to say, the pressure was on. I love this addition to our sentence. Needless to say, that means it really doesn't need to be said. It doesn't need to be vocalized. It doesn't need to be said out loud. In other words, it goes without saying. It goes without saying. What goes without saying? The pressure was on. Yeah, the stakes are very high, we could also say. There is a lot on the line here, we could also say. In other words, You know, Ryan has a lot of pressure. He has a lot to lose here if things don't go well. Needless to say, I would be so happy if you'd go click like on this video right now. Let's say the whole thing together, and then we will move on. This sentence is getting really tough. Are you ready? Ryan walked into the office as if he had everything under control. But if you looked closely, you'd see his hands were shaking because if he didn't land this job, he'd have to move back in with his parents, who were already hinting at turning his old bedroom into a home gym. So needless to say, the pressure was on. And Ryan knew he'd need to be on his A game. If you are on your A game or you bring your A game, that just means you are trying as hard as you can. You are giving it your all. You are giving it all of your energy, all of your effort, right? Hopefully you guys are bringing your A game to your English studies. Bringing your A game to your English studies. Yeah, it means you are giving it your all and not just trying half-heartedly. Trying half-heartedly. Let's say together and then level up again. We're almost done, guys. Keep pushing. Ryan walked into the office as if he had everything under control. But if you looked closely, you'd see his hands were shaking because if he didn't land this job, he'd have to move back in with his parents, who were already hinting at turning his old bedroom into a home gym. So needless to say, the pressure was on, and Ryan knew he'd need to be on his A game. Yeah, this was a make or break moment. In other words, this is such an important moment where things can go one of two directions. Things can go one of two directions. Maybe the interview will go really well. He will nail the interview, or we could say crush the interview, right? He'd do a really good job, or maybe things go the other direction and the interview is a big flop. What's that mean? If something is a big flop, it doesn't meet expectations. It's very disappointing. It doesn't go how you expected or hoped it would go. Let's say together, ready? Ryan walked into the office as if he had everything under control. But if you looked closely, you'd see his hands were shaking because if he didn't land this job, he'd have to move back in with his parents, who were already hinting at turning his old bedroom into a home gym. So needless to say, the pressure was on, and Ryan knew he'd need to be on his A game. This was a make or break moment. All right, what in the world is going to happen? Let's find out. Say it with me. So he sat down, offered a firm handshake, and gave the interview his all. Okay, a firm handshake, not a wimpy handshake. If you give somebody a wimpy handshake, then you're kind of limp. Your hand is kind of limp, not very strong. It doesn't feel like a confident handshake. My dad always told me when I was growing up, if you go and you have a job interview, make sure you give them a firm handshake and look them in the eyes, right? I'm curious, did your parents tell you that when you were growing up? That's kind of a classic, stereotypical boomer American thing to say. I'll tell you guys what, I really want to know what happens in this job interview. So let's just skip right ahead to level 10. Come on, let's go. And, say it with me, and successfully landed the position. Whew, no moving back in with mom and dad after all. Okay, we've got a happy ending at the end of today's super sentence. This is great. After all of that tension, all of that worry, all of that stress, in the end, Ryan successfully landed the position. In other words, he nailed the interview and he got the job. Now it's time to fight the final boss of this video. Let's say this entire level 10 sentence together. And guys, if this is the longest sentence you've ever spoken in your whole life, Let me know that down in the comments. Leave me a comment that says new record. Are you ready? Ryan walked into the office as if he had everything under control. But if you looked closely, you'd see his hands were shaking, because if he didn't land this job, he'd have to move back in with his parents, who were already hinting at turning his old bedroom into a home gym. So needless to say, the pressure was on, and Ryan knew he'd need to be on his A game. This was a make or break moment. So he sat down, offered a firm handshake, gave the interview his all, and successfully landed the position. Whew! No moving back in with mom and dad after all. I have one more speaking challenge for you guys, but first, very quickly, let me just remind you, if you want to bring your A game to learning English, just like Ryan, become a channel member. For only $5, you can get PDFs for all of my videos, hours of bonus videos, and access to my English book club, where we read easy to understand English novels together and discuss. If you want to get these benefits, or if you just want to support me, click the join button here on YouTube or go to my Patreon. Okay, back to the video. Here is my speaking cool down challenge for you guys. Can you summarize what happened to Ryan in today's story? I want you to push yourself to speak out loud for the full minute. Now, if you are not in a place where you can talk out loud right now, just leave a comment in the comment section instead. That's fine. If you are going to speak out loud, listen to my demonstration first. I'm going to go first and give you an example of what I'd like you to try and do. Okay, here's my 1 minute. Here I go. In today's episode of Super Sentences, the main character was a man named Ryan. Now, Ryan was in a very stressful situation. Yeah, he was in a high-pressure situation. What was going on? Well, he walked into an office to do a job interview. And for this job interview, it was very important that he do a good job, that he land the position, that he nail the interview. Because if he did not get the job, he would have to move back in with his parents. Well, Ryan really didn't want to do that, and his parents really didn't want him to do that either, right? They had already turned his home bedroom into a gym, so the pressure was on, but luckily, Ryan nailed the interview. That was my retelling of today's super sentence. Do you see how I took the story and I put it into my own words? That's what I want you to try and do. Take that minute, push yourself all the way through. Go ahead. A massive thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way through. Take your hand, give yourself a pat on the back. If you are in the middle of a study session, don't stop now. Keep going. I'm going to put another one of my videos up on the screen. Go click on it and I'll meet you there. Come on, let's go.